Hi, this is Andrew Aversa with Impact Soundworks, and today I'd like to show our latest sample library, CELESTIA, Heavenly Sound Design. This is a powerful hybrid synth and sampling workstation. It has a variety of over 200 acoustic, synthetic, and vocal sound sources in 10 different categories, as you can see here on the UI. We've also created a library of over 550 handmade presets in categories like acoustic, basses, effects, hybrid, 4 categories of pads, and so on. Before we jump into exploring the patch library, I want to showcase the interface. We opted for a very modern and sleek look inspired by things like the Windows Metro UI style, the latest version of iOS, Android, and so forth. The synth has a dual layer architecture. You can load 2 sound sources at any time. You have layer 1 and layer 2. Each of these layers has its own set of controls like volume, panning, tuning, amplitude and pitch envelopes, filters, and LFOs. Then there are global parameters such as a sequencer, which can be used as an arpeggiator or a gator, an effects rack with 7 different effects, all of which have their own automatable controls, and then performance settings, which allows you to do portamento, legato, and unison. Let's check out the hybrid category. So this beautiful sound has 2 layers. We have a physical model hang drum, as well as a pipe harp, which was taken from our resonance sample library. So if you look up here at the top, you have the sound source selector. Here I have the acoustic category, and you can see within that, here are the sound sources available. If I go to the other layer, this is in the bells category, and I have these sound sources available. If I were to keep browsing through, for example, airy, and glassy, noise, and so forth, you can see there is an immense range of options available. Again, over 200 sound sources to select from, and these can be morphed and mangled in all sorts of creative ways. So for now, let me go back to the PM hang drum. Now you'll notice up here that the memory load changed, and that's because the synth only uses whatever sound sources are currently loaded. So even though the entire library is about 5.5 gigabytes, it's actually only using 35 megabytes plus the KONTAKT overhead. Here we have panning on both layers, slightly separate, as well as volume and pitch. I'll turn off the second layer so you can hear what this sounds like. Now I'll switch to the other layer. You can crossfade between layers using this control here, which enables the crossfade slider. And this, of course, can be learned to MIDI automation. So here I have it on CC1. Each layer has a set of envelopes. So these are fairly straightforward if you've ever used any synthesizer sampler. And even just using the amplitude envelope is a good way to change and alter the shape of the sound, so to speak. There's also a pitch envelope, which I'm using here. Just for a little bit of extra interest in the attack. The sample start section is interesting because it actually plays the sample back partway into the waveform. So right now we're hearing it at 0. It's playing at the beginning. But if I change this, it will lop off the attack. Now for a very percussive sound like this, it might not be particularly useful, but let's check out something like the guitar harmonics. So you can see that dramatically changes the tone of the sound. You can also use this on pads and sustain sounds to create more percussive attacks. The random control will do a random playback position. So for example, if I have this set to random 26, it will jump around in the first 26% of the waveform. This is added on top of the constant modulator. There's a filter section as well. Let me go back here to the PM hang drum. There are 3 different types: low pass, band pass, and high pass, and there's a filter envelope as well. So let's change this to low pass for a second, add a bit of resonance, and increase the mod amount. So here again is a way to dramatically alter the sound. There are different LFO waveforms like sine, triangle, saw, square, and sample and hold. You can change the LFO sync from, I believe that's a quadruple whole note, all the way to a 32nd or 64th note. And then layer 2 has its own set of unique controls as well. So really the possibilities are endless just in terms of editing the layers themselves. So you have 200 sound sources, envelopes, filters, sample start. So that's great in and of itself. This bottom part of the UI is for global controls. For example, here we have the effects rack. And let's pull up a different sound now. How about Celestial Emo Piano? So this is a beautiful piano layer sound. We have a synthetic sound source and then an acoustic piano with a bunch of different effects. So let's check out some of those effects. We have an amplifier, which for this sound isn't too useful, but this would make the sound more crunchy and distorted. A bit crusher. A parametric EQ. So it has 4 bands, the low frequencies, low mid, and high frequencies. Right now this is being used to dull the high frequencies and increase the body and warmth of the sound. There's a simple chorus and phaser, as well as a time sync delay. So again, lots of sound design possibilities here as well. The most interesting effect, in my opinion, is the reverb. This is a convolution reverb that we have with custom impulse responses. Let me move this up so we can see it a bit more easily. Here we have the cathedral sound. This is a nice, spacious reverb, but there are a lot of special effects reverbs as well. Let's check out Frozen in comparison. And we'll take the high pass off. This is a really beautiful IR, great for very long and sort of processed and affected reverbs. We also have things like deep space. If I recall correctly, this is pretty bassy. And here I have the dry wet turned up 50%, just to show what the reverbs sound like. That one's very deep. Then there are also more, even more far out effects. For example, crystal echo. Which is sort of a high-pitched mini delay sound. There are also various glitters and shimmers, and then raindrops, which is one of my personal favorites. Adds that lovely sort of reverse shimmering, almost like, as the name suggests, like raindrops. And it just sounds great. So with these reverbs, you can dramatically change any sound just by manipulating the IR, the dry wet, the high pass, and the low pass. So it's really cool stuff and very inspiring. We also have the sequencer. Let me go ahead and load one of the ARPs and sequences. We'll do Above and Beyond, which I believe is more of a sort of EDM or trance influenced patch. You can change the number of steps in the sequence quite easily. here's the pitch, and then here's the velocity. Right now the velocity or volume is turned all the way up, but you could change this as well. You can also switch over to gator mode. What this does, rather than re-triggering the sound, it instead gates it rhythmically. So it wouldn't be particularly useful for this sound, but we can check it out on one of the pad sounds later. You can change the rate as well as the swing, and then the length of each step. Lastly, we have the performance section. So for this, let me go and check out one of the lead sounds. Here we have monophonic mode enabled with retrigger, but I can change this to legato and then increase the portamento time to give it more of a glide sound. You can also change the octave transposition and the pitch bend range. Unison is a bit CPU intensive, as you might expect, because it multiplies the number of voices in the synth. However, it enables you to do all sorts of fun sound design stuff. So here is 3 voices with some stereo spread and detuning. We use this in a lot of the very rich, thick pad sounds, so it can be very useful when used properly. Now with Unison, by default, it starts the sample at the same point. So if you're going to use Unison, you usually want to do some random sample start. So that way you get sort of a phase, rather than a phase reset, you get a sort of a free running phase. In short, it takes away some of that phasey attack and instead detunes and spreads the unison across the entire sample. There are a couple other neat things about the CELESTIA UI and engine. To show this, let's check out one of the hybrid sounds again. We'll do healing guitars too. So this is a layer between one of the warm pad sounds, Jupiter Nights, and then a wide 12-string guitar with the amplitude envelope changed. Let's say, though, that you don't really like the effects on this. You can simply load up the effects menu, the effects presets menu rather, go to the effects presets folder, and then pick something else. So let's do, how about deep chorus? And how about bright shimmer instead? So we have a nice bright EQ on this, as well as the large shimmer. Each section of the synth has its own set of presets. You can load up layer presets, for example, with all sorts of different things here, as well as sequencer presets and perform presets. So let's say we take the FM warm piano. That's a nice sound. It's very ripe for sequencing. We'll do, how about research ARP? Maybe a hold on ARP. These presets are intended to help inspire you. You can take one of our NKI patches, load it up, and then tweak the presets for any individual part. You then can save your own presets here. The layer presets don't actually change the sound source, so this can be pretty useful as well. Let's take a look at the initialize patch. This is just a saw wave. So if I load one of the layer presets here, how about fluttery pitch drop? That's a very dramatic effect using the pitch envelope in LFO. How about pad envelope? And then in the effects, let's load up something like emotional reverb. So with just a few clicks in the initialized patch, we've created a very simple saw pad. And this is one of the ways that we want to encourage people to create their own sounds with Celestia. Even though we've created many hundreds of patches, you can create your own variations very easily. There's also the randomize function, and this is a lot of fun. This completely randomizes the controls, and since that can get a little chaotic, we have lock icons. So let's say you don't want to affect the sequencer or either layer, just the effects. You can do that, and then hit randomize and see what happens. So suffices to say, there are, again, many possibilities using randomize to give you some inspiration for your own patches or for variations on our patches. Now that we've covered the basic UI and sort of how the instrument is used, I just want to showcase some of my own favorite patches from the library. So I have the acoustic category here. Let's pull up something like harmonic warmth. This uses the aquatic piano sound as well as the guitar harmonics. Everything in the acoustic category is primarily acoustic in nature, although it can have some layers. Let's check out Long Voyage of Viola. This uses a bowed pipe harp instrument as well as a solo viola. Very beautiful. How about the resonant piano body? We have the acoustic piano being used, as well as the chromatic pots. How about the glass harmonica? Classic sound. That's the pipe harp as well as the bowed crotalas. Moving on to some of the other categories, how about a nice bass sequence? This is a nice one for sub-layering. There are also some very dirty sort of sounds, although not necessarily with the theme of the library being beautiful. We decided to include them anyway, again, just for some inspiration. The effects category has some very interesting, both tonal, atonal, and then inharmonic sounds. And how about one more? Really fantastic for any sort of ambience, atmospheric music, transitions, etc. The hybrid category is a lot of fun. We already heard the aqua hang drum. Let's check out something like the, how about the bells from the east? Or how about the evolving ebos? We already checked out the healing guitars, which sound great, but how about the hybrid harp guitar? This uses a physically modeled harp, along with the Martin-picked 12-string guitar. How about the Shangri-La? In the pad category, of course, this is where the library really shines. Under airy and grainy pads, we have various choral sounds, like this. This is actually entirely synthetic, along with this textural sound. Or how about the Digivox? Or Heavenly Static. Some awesome sort of evolving air in that one. The glassy pads, as the name suggests, evoke sort of glassy or shimmering texture. Motion pads have more sweeping effects, more evolving, and more turbulence in the sound. Or more sweeping sounds using the filter envelopes. And then we have some very, very beautiful, pure, and warm sounds here. Then there are the rhythmic sounds like the sequences, and then we have lots of awesome gated sounds. Then there are synth poly sounds. These cover a wide range of instruments that are primarily synthetic in nature. And then, of course, there are purely textural sounds as well, like this. Textural sounds are usually best playing in octaves or single notes rather than playing full chords, since many of them already have chordal material built in. And finally, how about some pure nature ambience? Even though we've just covered probably less than 1% of the total patches here, there's an immense wealth of material. You have synthetic sounds, excellent for all sorts of electronic genres. You have very emotional acoustic instruments, hybrids, pads, everything you need to make amazing music in really any genre. Even though we made this instrument to focus on the lighter end of the spectrum, it really is very powerful and very versatile. So we hope that you'll make some amazing music with Celestia as well. Check out the demos. It's available now for a list price of $139, but it's temporarily on sale for an intro price of $119 with a cross-grade deal if you already own our library Juggernaut cinematic electronic scoring tools. So once again, this is Andrew Aversa with Impact Soundworks. We hope you enjoy making music with Celestia.